see how this works. Okay, so let's see if the sound is working. I'm trying a couple of different things today. Okay, so the sound is working. I'm trying a couple of different things today. All right, so I'm trying out a new tool to share on YouTube Live, and it is very difficult bouncing between screens. I'm looking at the live stream on my one computer and then the documents on my other computer. So I'm going to kind of be jumping back and forth, but the other problem is that it is at a slower rate. So I'm struggling to see if it's going to be beneficial for me to share my screen with you guys, or if you'd rather just do the live stream like we did last week. All right, I'm not seeing any comments from you guys. Hopefully that's not because of the delay. If you have something specifically that you want to see asked or answered, please make sure to use that comment feature. If you're on your phone, unfortunately, I wasn't able to access the comments from my phone, but from the web, or if you go through the actual YouTube app, I did find that that worked a bit. Let's see if I can see. There's no code. Okay. All right, so I'm still just trying to gauge how many. I see we have 6 people here. So you've joined hopefully with some questions, and hopefully there are some that I can answer. Otherwise, I can just kind of go through and talk about some of the things that we noticed last week, some of the things that we noticed we want to improve on this week, some things that we're still working through. We know next week is spring break, and the plan is to continue with spring break as scheduled, so we won't be providing resources for you next week. I will probably still post one activity or one suggestion, at least for the week, for you guys to work on. Nothing school-based, nothing standard-based. It would just be kind of a fun activity for you guys to do. If anybody has any questions that you want to see answered, again, please make sure you're leaving those in the comments. Otherwise, I can just kind of go over some of the new things for this week to give you some feedback and some ideas. And again, just leave those comments and I'll try to bounce back and forth. As of right now, aside from the delay, I just muted my screen. And as of right now, I'm going to make sure that we have, let me make sure I close that. Let it turn off. Okay. Anyway, sorry about that. I just wanted to try to hide those notifications if I could. So on our choice board this week, we've got, we put everything all together and we did narrow it down. So instead of 9 or 12 activities to choose from, there are only 6. For my students, I am recommending that you do at least 4 of them with some flexibility in the reading and math activities on that Friday. We know that the week kind of goes a little crazy, so sometimes it's just nice to have that little extra day. I linked both of these activities for day 1 and then broke down the, I believe I did this D, and H as the last activities for the other 3 days of the week. With the idea that we're reviewing our phonics and we're reviewing our grammar skills, and then fluency is just such an important part that we are working on as well. So while the choice board, there are 6, there were some questions I saw about, do we have to do all 6? No, at maximum do 5. If I'm, like I said, requiring 4. So I did combine these two. So ultimately my schedule for the week does have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 included in it. But know that I have on that checklist that you work on at least 4. And we talked about singular possessives, and then as we were looking back at the sheet was added for us. We noticed that there were a couple that have plural possessives, so that was something that you'd need to review with your learner, and I did try to catch that in the video as best as I could. And then you'll notice that we have a few more resources added this week. So some of the feedback we were having was it said use an article, and always trying to have the article linked in there was sometimes, it's hard to find what you need. So we tried to link some things in there directly for you to use with your notification. Or I'm sorry, I'm thinking about the notifications popping up and hoping that those will stop. Let me see if I can time out 1 second. Turn off. If I turn them off on here, I wonder if they'll mute on my computer or not. Sorry about that. We've just had all sorts of technical difficulties today. Between the YouTube links not working and Seesaw shutting down, hopefully that will work. So we've got some of these activities, like I said, that go with the actual activities listed on the choice board. Same thing in math. We're going to keep this format where we've got the fluency and review here on the front. And then it'll always have some idea for practicing fluency. By the end of the year, we want our students to know at least 30 facts 60 facts in 3 minutes. So we want them to be quick and going like that. And then just a review activity from the previous week. And then we'll have 2 parts of our new skill for this week. So that way it gives you a good chance on Monday to kind of like get settled in the week before we start something new on Tuesday and Wednesday. And I tried to put some resources that were fun. I've seen some great ideas so far with these fractions of actually using the mini pizzas and the sandwiches, or making them out of Play-Doh or salt dough. I saw somebody make fractions using toilet paper rolls or paper plates. So definitely, although these are, there are papers attached, know that if we were in class, we'd pull out the Play-Doh. Know that if we were in class, we'd make it as applicable to real life as possible. So if you have a different take on the activities and you want to do that, please go for it. And then we went into, I did talk about Kandinsky today and his art, so I'm trying to kind of come up with some creative activities for us to do. And then if you keep going, you'll see the advanced and accelerated math pages that are added there. There is one more page that I have linked on our school website for this one. For the Be the Teacher, I made a sheet that went along with it. If your student wants to use that, I'll link that onto the website. I'm seeing that, I wanted to check the chat real quick. Getting bored with teleschooling and when school starts, so me too. Unfortunately, it looks like with the president's announcement and the governor's announcement that at the very earliest it was announced the 24th. However, the president extended his stay-at-home order and social distancing order. He didn't do the stay-at-home, but the social distancing order he extended until the 30th. So it's not looking likely that we will go back to school during April. So we're just going to try to do it as much as we can on here. Awesome. I see the additional resources this week, making the choice activities easier. I'm so glad. We were having issues with the additional resources earlier. So clicking on any of the YouTube links, I had issues. Let's see if it'll work. Nope. So that was the error message that a lot of you were seeing. However, I actually had Olivia's mom said she just went and typed in this exact code and it worked. So I actually did a sample of that earlier and I bet I closed it now. My computer's overloaded with this program. But what she did was she actually just went in and typed in youtube.com/watch ? And typed in all those letters, and it worked for her, and it worked for me as well. So my plan after this is to go back and retype these all out and see if I can get them to link again. What I tested out before I did all that was this was the one that I actually typed out into my browser, and then when I clicked it, it miraculously it worked.
To fly a rocket ship, you need to be
I'm not exactly sure what's going on with the links and why they're not working. It seemed as though at first we thought it was just isolated to the ones that I added, but we noticed that it's other ones that other teachers have added too. So I'm going to play around with that and try to update that for you guys, but know that there is that little workaround there. Also, if you get any errors with the Nearpod codes, a couple of students said they had 1 or 2 issues with one last week. Different teachers are assigning them as a grade level. We're trying to collaborate as much as possible, so it's possible that the code was typed in correctly or that it wasn't sent to all students yet. So if you let me know that, then I can go back and double check that code for everybody. And then I see, hi Albin, so there was a miscommunication between, we forwarded all of our stuff to go onto the school website, and then now there is a new copy team for our school that to help with social distancing. There's a team that comes up to the school to make the copies, and there was nobody who sent them the copies this week. So we are looking forward to having a way for us to, obviously going forward, we're going to make sure that there are those copies in there. Any of the resources that were sent to you digitally, so I'm looking, for example, any of the reading ones here, like Riley's Jeep, I did post onto Seesaw today, and actually saw Celeste went through and completed that one in the activities tab. I'll link all of these on the day that I have them assigned so she can complete them digitally, so you shouldn't have to print them out. I know some people prefer to have them printed out. Same with the fractions, although she's not in that unit, but she could draw on them in the program. I saw Alex, I believe, went through and he used the drawing tool to go over the Kandinsky art. In her subject, there are some sheets that I can see. Ms. Hall said she'd be happy to link them, and Ms. Davis as well. So if there are anything specifically that you need printed, as I said before, we don't have access to the building, so there was somebody that's supposed to receive a copy, and now our grade level chair has taken that responsibility on to make sure that she has everything she needs. So going forward, there should definitely be those printed out packets. Everything else that we're trying to make accessible both digitally and printable as well, I guess. So yes, the quiz. The quizzes. So that's a new thing I wanted to try with everybody. Quizzes is an app that we've used in class before. We also have used Kahoot, and it's basically a digital online quiz. So right now, the way I have it set up is they have all of these codes, and when they go to join my quiz, let's see if everything's going to work for us, they enter in the game code. So let's say, for example, I want to do one on possessive nouns because that was today. Come over here and they join. What is different about this from a student's perspective is that when they hit start, let me turn that down. What's going to happen is it's just going to take them through the questions one-on-one. Whereas with a live quizzes, it's going to show us it is set in a format of a contest, but we see the results. And what I was thinking that we could do with those is I would be sharing that in a Microsoft Teams. So it would take a little bit of troubleshooting, and it is, again, one of those optional things. But what it would do is we would have a subject. For example, this week we're working on main idea, and we're working on fractions, and then in Blue Group we're working on extended fractions. So at those times, what I would do is I would host that live video chat, and then they'd have to have 2 tabs open, or split screen if you can do that, or so what I might do is I would have, my quizzes over here, and then I'd have the Microsoft Teams app going on this side of my screen. which I can definitely help you troubleshoot as much as possible, or they would just have this and have the audio of the Microsoft Teams going. And it would just give us a chance to have the conversation together. At the end, it shows the results, and we can see which questions were really, as a class, we succeeded at, which questions we had struggles with. It gives us a chance just to kind of feel a little bit normal of being back in class, because we're competing against our peers and things like that. So it is just a new idea. She's referencing on the, let's see, close all this out. She's referencing on the, do I not have it saved on my desktop? I meant to have that saved. The supported learning checklist that that I presented to you today. Sorry, I don't have it open yet. Here we go. Okay. So she's referencing down here, I have live class quizzes. So instead of them having those codes where they would enter in those codes separately, at 10 o'clock, I would send out a code on Microsoft Teams that they would enter, and they'd have to wait. And then it would say start on my side of things as the teacher, but for them, they would be waiting for others to join. So that's something to try with the quizzes. Items in iReady, like a test, we usually do iReady typically to learn. So should we wait and do iReady only when we already know the information? So what I'm trying to do with the iReady math and reading lessons that are assigned is those are not going to push out to the students until Thursday. That way they don't get confused between the already completed path that they're on and this new separate concept. With iReady, it's supposed to be filtered to when the student really understands the concept, it's going to advance them quicker. If they're struggling on a concept, it's going to slow their pace down. So we still want them to incorporate that, which is why we haven't done any assigned lessons this year. We've actually been told not to until this point. But what we're doing with those teacher assigned lessons is as teachers, are selecting ones based on, we're making sure that it's grade appropriate content. We're also making sure, so if your learner somehow skipped to 4th grade level, but they're still struggling with sometimes, it's a technology-based program, so it's multiple choice. Sometimes there is some lucky testing and things like that can kind of complicate some things. So also opposite end of things, you could notice that your learner is doing some really easy activities, but it's supposed to progress them through them faster. So with the new iReady assigned lessons, what I'm doing is I'm making sure that they are, so we're nearing the end of 2nd grade. I'm making sure that I'm not doing any activities that are above, mid-year 2nd grade content. So we're doing main idea right now. So when I went through the main idea activities that iReady had, they did have one that seemed perfect, but then I looked at it and it said beginning of 3rd. And so I don't want to assess them on something that they're not prepared for. So I'm looking for things that are mid-year 2nd and before 2nd for those reading and math concepts. So I did actually go through the one for this week on main idea. I actually went through and did the lesson just to make sure. And what it is, it's broken down into 2 parts. So for the reading one, I didn't go through the math one yet. So I'll look at that and see if it's provided a similar idea. But what it does is it goes over a practice of what they're going to be assessed on. So the first one was a book about silkworms. And so they'll have a page and then it'll say reading check. And then it'll ask them a question about that page. And usually it's just a paragraph on the page or a couple sentences. It's nothing too crazy. And then it'll go through, I think, probably 5 or 6 different pages. And then there'll be kind of a summary at the end. The first whole section, so it's broken up into 2 10-minute sections ideally. The first whole section, it allows them to recheck their answers. If they make a mistake, it asks them to answer again, try again. Did you think about it? So it's reteaching them the skill. And then the second one is where the grade comes from. So in the first one, I was making all sorts of errors just to see what it would say and to learn from it. And that didn't count against my score. What counted against my score was the second component. That second, it has like a break mark in the middle of them if you're watching them. But yeah, it is, the reading is a passage and questions kind of back and forth, and it's not too overwhelming, but it does require them to go back and make sure that they're really paying attention to it and the concepts. So the assigned lessons are related to the weekly work or the individual. So what we're trying to get to with our reading skill is having more of a generalized focus, whereas before we had possessive nouns and or what we still have our grammar skills and things like that. Those are assessed just through the seesaw activities and things like that. We are not currently grading anything in grammar, language, or science and social studies. We're only grading reading and math. So that's why I'm not doing any iReady lessons assigned to those specific content, but that's part of why our choice board in reading, you'll notice, went from those 12 choices down to 6, because we wanted to focus more on one generalized topic. So this week, for example, we're really kind of focusing on nonfiction texts and some I'm blanking on what I was saying, some nonfiction texts and talking about main idea and details and important facts and things like that. So what I'm going to do from now on is I'm going to have the iReady reading assigned lessons planned out for this and have the subject content here. So iReady reading on, the one last week was on characters, which is what we did in our reading lesson. So if you join the Wednesday read aloud, it's going to be based on main idea and things like that, so they can get some more practice on that. And then what I did notice was students who fail the reading test, which I believe is, I saw somebody with a 68 and it said needs to reassess or something. So it's just like Fulton County policy, where if they get below a 70, they are given a chance to make up. However, it's not going to set them at a 70 like Fulton County will do, but I will let them keep that higher score. So if they fail the first time around, it will have them recomplete the lesson, going back through, pointing out some things for them, and then they can reassess. And so I will take the higher of the two scores for the grade. Yes, the assigned lessons are the only grades they're getting right now. We are told to only give one a week, and if students are not able to access it digitally through iReady, then parents are supposed to reach out to us. We're supposed to reach out to them. I've extended the lesson from last week, I think, until Wednesday, so I'm still waiting on checking on a few people from there. But currently, yes, those are the only grades that we're taking, because we're limiting our students' time to only 60 minutes a day of instructional time. Outside of the scope of that, it really has to be minimal. So even if you check the morning message, you read, you do the reading activity and the math activity, sometimes you will have already gone over that 60 minutes. And I'm providing between, I'd say, I'm trying to not overwhelm you guys and overload you guys, but I also realize the need for continued instruction. So it's one of those torn situations where you want to make sure that you have enough information for those that need it, but not too much that the kids are just sitting there doing work all day long, because that's not what we do all day long too. We have our breaks, we have our movement, we have things like that. So that's why on this new checklist here, so I've got the must complete to remind you that that's all that you're required. And then anything else that's additional on here is just that, it's additional. We can't require it, especially for students from pre-K to second grade, because they weren't given devices. Our third grade through fifth grade were given the opportunity to have devices picked up, but unfortunately the district is not going to allow it for anybody younger than that right now. So all the extra resources on even iRead and iReady, all the videos that I'm posting to Seesaw, all of the activities that are in Seesaw, additional things that you want to work on, quizzes and Nearpods and things like that, they're not required. They're just there to help you guys continue that learning as needed. So projects that require a few students' collaboration online, we're not going to require any projects like that. We might open an extension for something like that. I would love to do that, especially knowing that this is continuing on another month, where we'd be able to meet kind of in small groups or things like that. Scheduling is going to be a bit tricky, making sure that we could get certain students. I'm thinking of like a Sign Up Genius or something like that, where we can see how to collaborate in smaller groups, and we would use Microsoft Teams to do that. That's really what the district is just pushing so heavily. It's all the student information and data is secured, and some of our other apps and competitors are their level of privacy is there, but it's not always to the extent that we need when we're talking about younger children. So I know that that's why they're pushing the Microsoft Teams right now. And I know we're still kind of getting used to how to utilize the platform and some of the features that we wish that it had versus ones that, maybe we wish that they wouldn't have, those types of things. But we're committed to trying it for right now. Um, Last Friday, yes, it was difficult. I'm not sure how, because on my side of things, the students should not have access to start their own chat and their own call, and that's what happened on Friday. So Fridays are more of a loose based, not really a lesson. It's just a check in, just more for the students to kind of collaborate and see one another and communicate and things like that. It typically won't have a lesson or a message with it. It's just going to be kind of checking in, seeing how everybody's doing, celebrate each other's successes, that sort of thing. Whereas the Wednesday one is going to be more based on the reading skill for the week. So I'm not sure why you're only seeing one person at a time. Most people I've been told have seen 4 people at a time. And it is based on who is talking at the current moment. We just did we did it with my whole family yesterday. My not my brother-in-law, not yet anyway, but my sister and her boyfriend are in France right now. And we FaceTimed with them and my parents and my other brother and my sister. And it was that same feature that where you're talking about where whoever's talking the most comes up first or biggest or something like that. And we were just like, it was all over the place, the screens and things like that. I do know that Microsoft is working on having the feature where all of the students would be displayed at a time. I know that that's the biggest thing that teachers are complaining about with Zoom and why we want access to Zoom is because it can show all the screens at once. And unfortunately, Microsoft Teams has said they've been working on that for like 2 years now. They said, knowing that with this supported learning that so many people are going through, that they are really trying to find out their most required or most requested things, and that's one of them that they're supposed to be hopefully fixing soon. Somebody did say you can pin. So if, for example, there is somebody who you want to see pinned on your screen, there is a way to do that. You just click the 3 dots and then you click the chat, or not the chat, I'm sorry, the group participant list, and then you can see next to that person that you can pin them. Yes, so having live small group sessions, that's definitely something that I want to do, especially in terms of new math concepts and things like that. That's where I'm toying around with the idea of doing some sort of a sign up genius so I can see what times work best. As of right now, I have some availability in the afternoons on Tuesdays. Wednesdays, I'm pretty blocked up in the afternoon, and then our reading in the morning. And then Thursdays with trying out this live class quizzes, that would block up our morning there. So I'm playing around with what availability I have and what availability you have. I don't want to do anything that's too late outside of the school day, but I also want to understand you guys have work going on, you have other kids, so trying to find the time that's going to work best for everybody for those small group times. And live sessions, I've heard just having like open office hour type things and having people sign up through that. So once I get my schedule figured out, which I'm feeling much more confident about, I'd like to start that after spring break for sure. Yes, and definitely we have some strong personalities in our class. So we have sometimes people that have to get muted a little bit more than others. And it's just like when we're in class as well, making sure that all voices are heard, things like that. It's a little bit hard for raising your hand, online when it's not exactly working that way. So this is just a learning experience for all of us. Definitely would like to do some of those small group activities as possible. So I definitely want to look into that. Okay. So with this checklist, I did keep it blank in terms of reading activity choice board, with the intention that then if you want to do something different than what I'm doing, I heard some people are saying that they like to do an activity the day after I do it, so that way they can go back and see all the resources and things like that. I'm trying to keep it as streamlined as possible, while supporting as much as possible too. So with the Seesaw activities each week, I go through on Sundays and I delete all of the ones from the previous week before. So if you were to log on to Seesaw today, you would only see, let's see if my computer can handle this today. You would only see the ones that are based on the skills for today. I want to make sure that everybody's aware that, oops, I'm sorry. One second. Oh boy. Telling you technology is not my friend today. There we go. Okay, so one of the things that you'll notice when you're on a desktop is that it automatically is going to go to this top subject, which is reading. When we were using the devices in class, we had a code that scanned straight into this one, so we never messed around with these other settings before. Some of you have figured out that there are other classes in here, especially if you're in the Blue Group Math. This is where I'm posting your stuff, so it's not linked in with everything. And I know, for example, for Celeste and Rashi, if you guys are on here, that you have access to Miss Davis and Miss Hall's math, and that's where they're posting their stuff as well. So I did just want to make sure that you're aware that if you see these red notifications, that it could be that there's an assignment accidentally posted in the other place, or that your learner is accidentally posting. So I noticed that a lot of people are posting in reading because that's the first one that pops up. So if you just scroll down here, this is where you'll see all of the resources that are posted from today. Now, my platform looks different than yours, but this is what the students usually can see is everybody's work. So that's where you might have seen that they're leaving comments. Please share this with everybody. But I did hear recently about using Seesaw as a tool for blog, and what that can do is limit the amount of notifications that you guys are getting on Seesaw if your student is getting tagged in something from another student. So hopefully that'll help eliminate that. But again, that activities tab, it should be cleared out except for the stuff from today. And then this was just a fun little activity that I saw, reading activity A, C, and then this was for one particular student, so you don't need that one. And then this, it was virtual field trip day, so I said that I was gonna find something on virtual field trips. So I'm trying to stick to that schedule of posting the ELA activities in the morning, some sort of fun activity in the middle of the day, and then math a little bit later in the morning, to try to kind of space it out for you guys so it's not too overwhelming, but that you have access to it when you need to. So this is the hard part that we're facing as teachers too, is knowing how our students are doing with that, only that one access point coming from iReady. It does make things difficult in terms of, whereas normally we're with them, 7 hours a day, and we're checking in all day long, and we have different assignments and different activities and whiteboard checks and conversations and communications and things like that. So my best advice for you going forward, and I know that it's extra work, is having that Seesaw posting, whatever it is that they're doing on Seesaw. I try to keep up with that as best as I can. This weekend it wasn't working properly, but I try to give immediate feedback. So if they're struggling on something, I had students who turned in that possessive noun page on Seesaw today, and they had many wrong. So then I was able to go in and leave a comment saying, hey, I need you to check numbers 2 and 9. I think those were the most common with those plural possessives. Or if they're doing a writing example, I'll say something like, this is really great, but have you thought about adding more detail to this particular section? Or when they're doing a math skill, I can go through and say, okay, good, I like the way that you're, drawing your shapes this way, or your fractions are this way, but can you make sure that your numerator, it looks like your numerators and your denominators are flipped, or something like that. So it does put a lot on you guys, but if you share it with me on Seesaw, then I have a bit of a way to kind of give you that feedback to help you with where they're doing from week to week. It's very difficult because we have some students who are on Seesaw all day long sharing everything, and then I have some students who I haven't seen on Seesaw at all. I have some who I only have heard from on the Microsoft Teams at the end of the week. And so it is difficult to keep track of where everybody's at without being able to see them every day and without being able to talk to them and communicate with them and see where they're at. So send this stuff to me on Seesaw. That is definitely a platform that I'm using every single day, all day long. And then that way I can give you that feedback on how she's doing. It won't be exactly like a progress report because I can't require anything beyond that 1 grade a week. We're told pretty explicitly that we have to set our expectations on that 60 minutes of instruction a day, and that's going to be way less than they're used to having. You know, they're used to having 180 minutes of reading and grammar daily. So the fact that it's 60 minutes total of instruction a day is going to be different than what we're used to. This is just a difficult time for everybody trying to figure it out. So as much as I can, I encourage you to use that Seesaw tool to help you get some more of that instant feedback. And I've had people do the activities on Seesaw, or they're doing the activities on the choice board and then taking a photograph of it and sending it. So if you're concerned about that, please let me know. Specials. I think that what the county has required is that the 3rd grade through 5th grade, their minutes are actually different for what they're like. So I was just referencing that 60 minutes. The 3rd grade and higher grades have extended minutes to their day of instruction, and that's where those art, music, PE activities are being posted. They're not required for our younger grades. I think they're just making some additional ones for people that want to do them. But I know for a fact that our pre-K through 2nd grade is only required 30 minutes of math, 30 minutes of reading. That's the only thing that's required there. So better for the kids to do all the choice board activities in Seesaw. So that depends on how your family runs, how your learners run. It's so difficult because in our classroom, we're used to doing things in a variety of ways. So they might be doing it on a whiteboard, or they might be doing it on a piece of paper, or at this point in the year, I know who is a really good technological learner and who's going to show me a better example if they type up their information versus who's going to give me a better example if they just sit with a notebook. So with the Seesaw activities, a lot of times what I will do is I'll go in and try to either find something that aligns nearly identical to what the choice board activity is, or if it's a page. For example, in reading, we have the page, let's see if I still have it up. So for math today, for our on-level students, what I did was I posted this actual picture. So this is the actual activity. Up here in reading, I will post this actual article in Seesaw, so they have a digital copy of it. But I've also had people who have I saw, I think it was Vid Hunterum this morning, who he had these and he was holding it up like this, and he had drawn the lines on it. This activity will be posted in Seesaw on the day that I have picked it out, and they'll be able to go in and draw on it as well. So I'm trying to give you a little bit of both. Just knowing now that this has been extended, it would be a while for me to collect all of these papers. If you're doing them on paper and I'm not seeing them, it would be, I mean, now we're looking at 4 more weeks. So if your child is struggling on possessive nouns and you don't have time to go through and check it all because you guys are working, you have your jobs, you have your other children, you have your normal routine of your house that you're doing. So you're now asked to be doing so much more than what's humanly possible. So I want to applaud you on that and make you aware that I really recognize that. And that's why I'm trying to give you as many tools to help you, and as well as trying to not overwhelm you. But if you're not able to go over this with them and they've watched the Brain Pop video and they think they know it and they did it all, if you're posting this on Seesaw, again, whether it's I have the paper here, here, Ms. Barnes, here's a picture of it, or I complete this activity on the Seesaw Activities tab, they can get feedback if not that day, by the next time they log back in, they can go to their profile and see all of their things. And I've actually had students we've had comments back and forth. I've had students who we have actually, the parents have left comments and said, okay, I think you need to check number 3. Mr. Vance asked to be added to our Seesaw account, so hopefully he'll be able to go in there and post some things as well, just to give that feedback that comes through a little bit more instantly than if you keep everything collected until the end of the week or now until we go back to school. There's a lot more time in between that response, if that makes sense. So yes, definitely, if there is not, let's say, for example, persuasive writing, I think this week's is actually a sheet that goes along with it. We actually were filling out a graphic organizer, but let's say, for example, last week, the recipe, I had people, again, who just wrote it down on a sheet of paper and took a picture of it. I had one who made it on a giant poster. So you have the opportunity, and let your kids have that opportunity too, to share their ideas of how they want to organize it too. But if you're sharing it, then I can kind of see and give feedback as needed. Sometimes I can't quite read the writing, or the image quality isn't quite there. So that's where using those text boxes are definitely encouraged, especially in possessive, like pages like this. If they try to write it, I have a difficult time trying to write it using my mouse. So on Seesaw, there is the, I closed it, I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep things closed so that this can run faster. But using the text tool, it's a little T, they can add a box and they can put that in there, and that'll help us be able to read it a little bit better. Or when they're typing their Friday letters, things like that, they can do that and type in a note format. So where's the best place for them to find short, age-appropriate text that they can read for assignments? So when I go through these assignments, I will try to find a specific example. So for example, you're referencing exercise B, finding a short article or passage with a glossary. So if you don't have access to a bunch of books at home that you know of that have glossaries, I was having a little bit of a hard time on Epic. Which again, if you need, that was something I want to get feedback on. There's a lot of login questions. What's our code for this? Or how do I get on BrainPop? Those types of things. I want to pull a resource that has like just all of those things linked for us. So I'm working on that. If you have anything specific, leave it in the comments or send me an email or something so that I can add it to the list. I know Epic was one and BrainPop was one that we needed to make sure we have the codes for. National Geographic did add all of their resources on Epic. So what I would do is I would just search for, there we go. So it does actually go through age. It does actually go through reading level, format, things like that. So if you're looking for something that's on their 8, I did find 7 was a little bit shorter. On Epic, it also does tell you the page numbers too, so you can kind of use that as a tool. Again, though, I had a hard time finding when I was trying to go over the article about, it was the nonfiction scavenger hunt, and when I went through the text, now this one actually has a map and has things like that I can find. It has these zoom in features, so this is actually a really good one. So that's something that you're not used to doing as parents, but something that I'm used to doing as a teacher is being able, I have a library in my classroom full of, 4,000 books that I've collected over the years. I know ones that are good to use for certain things like that. But doing it digitally, I'm feeling the same thing that you're doing. Trying to find one that works perfectly for an activity can be quite difficult. Epic is one that I do find is can have such a wide variety that you're likely to find what you need. So for example, this one does have a glossary. It's in a little bit of a different format than maybe we're used to, but this is probably one that I'm going to save and use for that. It's not terribly long. It is, by the end of 2nd grade, they really want students to be able to read for, I think it was up to 45 minutes straight. We talk about building that stamina. So being able to hold interest in a subject, it is something that they're looking for them to be able to do. if you're looking for something a little bit shorter, I mean, this book might take a while. It does say level K, age 5 to 8, so it's kind of a mixture there. But Epic is a good resource. And then if you're looking for an article, National Geographic Kids has some great articles. NASA for Kids has some great articles, and those were linked in that first reading web page Miss Davis created, which I still have linked on the website as well. So the problem is with an article, you're most likely not going to have a glossary in it. So it's a little bit of a tricky struggle. I realize that, which is why I'm trying to do those videos daily. I was a little bit behind today with all the meetings, and I just didn't have time to do them over the weekend. But I'm really trying to get those videos out to you where I will link the article or talk about a specific book and talk about where they can find it. So I'll tell the kids, hey, I'm going on Epic and I'm going to find this National Geographic Readers on Penguins. And this one is actually a read to me book. So if you have a struggling learner, this is a good tool that they can use. And then I can even assign it. I can send it, which I believe I did last week with the Yeti book that I read online. So I'm hoping that that will help you there. And then it looks like Scholastic Learn at Home is another really good activities in reading text. I know that there's that's the thing is, even as teachers, we're getting overwhelmed with all of these great companies that are sharing these resources with us. So I haven't explored Scholastic. I did see that they were doing some support for parents specifically. So they were actually providing lessons that were geared for parents to be able to read and understand how to teach the skill to their student. But I'm hoping that the videos that I'm doing are providing some of that information. But yeah, Epic would be a good start for that, because we can't go out and get new books and we can't go to the library right now. So that would be my best bet to start, is searching nonfiction in Epic. All right, I think that's up to date on there. So I was going to write down that we need codes for Epic, which our class code I'll put in the comments here just in case. I believe if I sent you, it was supposed to just automatically log you in, but I did hear that it wasn't doing that. So that's our Epic code there, HTD3412. And that's how they can access. I mean, every time I'm on here, there's new books that they've added. And then some of them even have video links and quizzes and things like that. So you can actually go through, and there's just, these are going to be on ecosystems and habitats, but they do have ones on sports. They do have ones on space and science, and then there's tons of just fiction books as well. So it's a really good tool, and I'm really excited that they extended it to have access for students at home as well. So I know that was the code. I'll add that to our sheet. To get on BrainPop, that was another one that seemed to be trouble today. Students can access it through their Launchpad. It's actually already on there for them linked, so they don't have to log in. Otherwise, the username is medlockbridge, all lowercase, and then the password is BrainPop, which that's what I'm trying to collect, is just one stop go-to to put on there. Yes, so Louise said those books that were assigned were for Sarah to progress her English, just to learn some basic skills, basic words and things like that. I do believe that on Epic, they also have books that are written. I wouldn't know how to get to them right now from the top of my head, but I do believe they have some that are written in Spanish as well, but on a second grade level. So she could work on more reading text on her level, but in her native language. That could help her. I'll look into that some more and see if I can assign them specifically for her. That's another thing I also wanted to share with you. Let's see. Okay, so BrainPop is still asking you to log in. So yeah, so it's going to be, I'll put that in here. Bridge, and then the password is BrainPop. when we're at school, we used to have to always sign in. So I'm so used to thinking the kids know the password for that, but then they, I guess, recently updated it so we don't have to type in the password. But I will definitely put that on our password cheat sheet collection, just so that everybody, like that, when there's the 2000 number, what website needs that versus what websites don't. So if there's anything else that you've had trouble accessing that you want them to have access. I know I was asked about Prodigy. I did create an account. I just didn't send it out yet because it's just one more thing to add to the list. But if you want specific access to a certain website or something like that, reach out to me and I'll see what I can figure out. You would think it would work that way, especially if they're going through their Launchpad, that putting in their login information, it would work. But unfortunately, it's hard, especially because we're dealing with second graders who are just on the cusp of feeling, almost third graders now too, that feeling more independent, feeling like they know what they're supposed to be doing, and then there's all these different things that it's hard for us adults to keep straight of. So I just want to say that again and reiterate that what you guys are doing is incredibly difficult and incredibly admirable, and you should be really proud of the work that you're doing. It's not easy. You're asked to be doing your jobs. You're asked to be, I mean, we've got a global pandemic going on, so you've got thoughts and worries and concerns about that, and then you're trying to take care of your family, and on top of that, now all of a sudden you have to be a teacher, and I know it's not easy. So take a minute to recognize that this is new, this is different, this is challenging, and let me know when you figure out what you need, and I can try to make it work as best as we can. So hopefully, let's see. Hopefully this is going to be helpful. Hopefully those continued videos that I'm sending. So we have a couple that we're trying to divide up with the team to try to get some of the other teachers involved in creating videos and things like that. So you'll see some come through. I know Miss Rios sent one to me earlier today for one of the activities later in the week. I'm not sure about Miss Hall and Miss Davis yet. I know they were talking about it, but I'm going to still plan to do the daily videos in addition to theirs, just so that way, because this is a familiar format of me going through different ways to teach it, I try to kind of address both the parent and the child. So there's a little bit of me teaching the actual lesson, and then there's some of me talking to you as an adult. This is how I would do this type of skill. And if, like I said before, if you have different ideas based on the same skill, and you want to do that instead of a choice board activity, that's fine. The more practice, the better. The formatting of it doesn't have to be. So my example for the pizza fractions, if you have a different way that you want to work on, I've seen all these activity ideas with Legos and fractions. And if you have something, or your child has something that you want to do, if you want to make a poster of fractions instead of note cards of fractions, know that I encourage that creativity in class. So definitely encourage you to continue that creativity if that's something that you feel would be beneficial for your child. All right, so I'm not seeing any more comments. It is, wow, 5:30. So we've been on here for about an hour, which is great. I hope that I was able to help you guys with some of the questions. I would like to continue doing this weekly, because each week that we do it, there are new questions that come up. There are new problems, new concerns, new thoughts that I have, new ideas that you guys have, and I want to incorporate all those as much as possible. So next week will be spring break, so we probably won't host it. Stay tuned. I'll send a message. The other thing was thinking of some sort of format for small group office hours. I know that in 5th grade, they were just doing like an open, hey, if you're having trouble with fractions today, I'll be available for 30 minutes at this time, log in and ask your questions type thing. But those are a little bit older students. So my hope is that the more familiar we get with Teams, the more boundaries we can set with it. So just like our classroom, the beginning of the school year, there's always the rules that we have to go over. And so hopefully with that, we'll go over, don't start your own chat, don't start your own video, those sort of things, wait for the teacher, those kind of boundaries, and setting those time limits and things like that. So I'm going to keep playing around with the format of that to help with some kind of individuals and open it up as the schedule allows for everybody. So that is on my list, and the codes, the cheat sheet codes. But otherwise, if you have any other specific questions, I find that in this format, it works really well because I can answer your question directly as it pops in, whereas I can't tell you how many emails we're getting daily from all sorts of, not just our team and our parents, but from all these apps and websites that are sending resources and things like that. So trying to send me in this format or through Seesaw, you'll notice that it's a little bit more of a delay as I try to kind of make sure I'm wrapping my head around it, but this kind of gets that instant feedback. So thank you guys. And thank you. If I could get back to class, oh man, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I was really upset last week when I heard that announcement. So it's tough. It's tough on us teachers too. This is not how we want to teach. We want to be there with them, and they inspire us, and they give us new ideas and challenge us creatively every day. So I'm definitely missing. This is such a special class, and I already felt shorted having been out on medical leave. So I hope that people start taking this seriously, and we can bend the curve, and hopefully that last month of May we can have some interaction again, because I miss them, and I know that they miss each other too. So hopefully we'll keep figuring this out, and we'll keep going with what we can and making the best of the situation. So if there's no more questions, just let me know. Arv looks forward to opening Launchpad and Seesaw every morning. I love that. I know he sent me a message already, and he was like, "Hey, where's my stuff?" So he was. I was a little bit late on getting some of those. We had our conference extended a little bit longer, and then I had a meeting that was scheduled that was outside of the normal. So as much as I can to keep that flow going, that's what I want to continue. So I'm going to try to keep that schedule as best as possible, keep the resources coming, try to keep them consolidated as much as possible. And if there's something that you want to see more of, please reach out to me. So if not, thank you guys so much, and I will talk to you soon. Let's see if I can